Hey, all right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We have a very special guest tonight. We have Simon Nicolian with us. Simon Nicolian, if you could do me a favor, Simon, introduce yourself. Tell us your title, your role, your company, stuff like that, and where you're coming from tonight.
Hi, with pleasure. Hello, everyone. My name is Simon Nicolian. I am Pernod Ricard's whiskey ambassador, one of 5 nationals that go around the country talking about the wonderful world of whiskey. Specifically with our brands, I have the pleasure of representing some of the most historical scotches, Glenlivet, Chivas Regal, the Irish from Middleton in Texas, all the Middleton Island, all the high-end Irish, excuse me. And I've got Texas, I'm in full Texas mode today. And of course, our wonderful American whiskeys.
You know, it's funny. A whole bunch of us could get tempted to go down the redbreast rabbit hole here. You know, we could start talking about that with you, but we're going to avoid doing that because tonight we're going to try to focus on TX. So one thing that Eric and I love to do with these sessions is we love to introduce people to a whiskey that they may not have tasted before, okay? Many people here are not familiar with TX. They're not familiar with the company that makes TX, it's called Firestone and Robertson, right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about them?
Absolutely. There was 2 guys, Firestone and Robertson. In 2010, they set about creating a whiskey distillery. Neither of them were in the whiskey field. They had history of finance, and but went decided they wanted to get into the whiskey business, and they had a significant love of whiskey. But these gents went significantly down the whiskey rabbit hole. They took trips all around the world to really kind of understand how it's made, and then chose to open up the distillery in Texas that we know as TX.
Got it.
It was 2010, 2011. The first whiskey was being made. The TX blended, and we put that out while we were waiting for the bourbon to age.
Got it. Wonderful. So I just want to give a few housekeeping notes to people here. I mentioned before we started, but for those of you who came on a little bit late, we actually have 4 samples here tonight, but only 3 of them are for the session. 1 of them is for the after party. For the after party, we have a Penelope sample that the Penelope guys and Ted sent us after we had interviewed the Penelope guys last year. And we've been sitting on the bottles and waiting for an opportunity to send it to people. So the Penelope is for later, for the after party. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Lynn and Ralph. Okay, shots, Lynn and Ralph shots, because TX in Illinois, which is, as you know, where most of us are based, there are only 2 expressions of TX that are available in Illinois, the blended and the straight bourbon. Okay, and the way that we got the cognac cask is that Ralph and Lynn were in Texas for, I think, like a bar bat mitzvah, and they actually picked up 2 bottles for us there. Okay, and they brought them back with us, with them to Chicago. So it was really awesome. And again, thank you very much to Ralph and Lynn for that. Really made our lives easier, and then it's going to make it a more pleasurable evening tonight. So let's get into the whiskey. Okay, so tell us about this first thing we're going to drink, which is the straight bourbon. Can you tell us about the grain that goes into it, where they get it, what's the mash bill, etc., things like that?
Absolutely.
And cheers, everybody. Cheers.
Hi, cheers, everyone.
Straight
as
bourbon.
they say in Texas. We've got the straight bourbon in our hands here, 90 proof, released in December 2016. So what's the mash bill? We get all of our grains from Sawyer Farms. That's in Hillsboro, Texas. All of the grains that we use to make all expressions of TX whiskey come from 50 miles away. We actually have a inclusion of, well, I'll tell you the mash bill. So it is a 4-year bourbon whiskey, 12% barley, 14% winter wheat, and 74% corn.
Okay, let me stop you for a second, okay, because we've got a bunch of geeks here. I want you to repeat those percentages because, believe me, people here take note of this stuff.
With pleasure. We've got 4-year-old whiskey that's 12% barley, 14% winter wheat, and 74% corn.
Got it. Is the barley malted barley?
The barley is not specified whether or not it's barley. There's a few things. I'll tell you everything I can. There are a few items that are proprietary. I will tell you, for if there are any farmers over here who perhaps know the landscape in Texas, you might be thinking, winter wheat, that's interesting. You can't actually grow winter wheat in Texas because it's too hot. Soya farms found a way. These guys are 4th generation farmers, and we've been working with them exclusively and will continue to do so for all the grains that we supply. Absolute legends.
Okay.
Well, please.
Okay. So, as far as so that mash bill, okay, I know that you have several different bourbons that are available, obviously, you know, in different places. Are all the bourbons made from that same mash bill?
I can confirm everything that's been made so far on the bourbon whiskey and the finishes are precisely this. The TX blended whiskey is a different mash bill.
Right, and we'll get to that, right. But that's not a bourbon because it gets, you know, it's like, I just want to make sure that the bourbons were all the same, so that way we understand what the process there. Okay.
Confirmed.
Got it. And then tell us about tell us about the casks.
Okay, so I would like to, if I may, while we're on the mash bill, it's also very important to note something that's truly special as well, that's quintessentially TX and us. The yeast strain that we use is a wild yeast strain. It is derived from a pecan nut. In Texas, we say pecan. You say pecan. However you want to say it. It's the nut of Texas, and we were the first American whiskey to go wild on the yeast strain. There was the original distiller, Rob Arnold. He's a doctor now, recently a scientist, and he's got he wanted to. He was our original distiller, and it was down to him that we ended up going down this kind of a route of very terroir-driven whiskey. In 2010, when we started the journey, no one was doing terroir in whiskey. Obviously, very important to the wine world, and we kind of
right. And everybody's using that word now. I mean, we're hearing that word constantly. You know.
Yeah, and it's us who wrote the book on it, but actually quite literally wrote the book on it, because there is a book called The Terroir of Whiskey that Dr. Rob Arnold wrote. Yeah, and he paved the way for terroir in whiskey making.
Okay, so with respect to that terroir, then does that also then result in you using wood from Texas for your casks?
We don't actually discuss wood. It is a proprietary bit of information, so sadly I can't confirm that. Okay. However, everything else about the whiskey, both inside, outside of the bottle, is all Texas. We've got from the inside of the bottle, the grains, the wild yeast strain from the pecan nut. That's the nut of Texas, obviously being made here. And then the outside of the bottle, there's the leather. The leather cap that's made from reclaimed boot leather. The original distillery was next to a boot shop in Fort Worth there, and we had a partnership with them to give us scraps of leather. There's on the TX, yeah, it's interesting. The silver on the bottle of the TX blended actually has traces from spurs and belt buckles in the label.
Wow, that gets detailed. That's fascinating. Yeah, that must be fun.
Yeah, it's definitely just super well thought from start to finish, from grain to glass, from the inside and the outside of the bottle. Okay,
and the actual distilling itself, does that actually happen in Dallas? Because you said you get the grains from 50 miles away from Dallas, but the distilling actually happens in Dallas itself.
Yeah, everything now we've caught up. At the beginning, there was a little bit of sourcing They don't we don't disclose who we sourced from initially, but as soon as we caught up, now everything is made at the distillery. The new distillery, we moved to just maybe 30 minutes drive away from downtown Fort Worth, where the old distillery was. It is called Whiskey Ranch, and it's set on an incredible golf course there. If anyone is in the area, please come down.
Sure. Well, I will tell you that a few of us were planning to go there in October, but an event was canceled. So Daniel Pikus and I was on here. He and I compete in a kosher barbecue. We were in a kosher barbecue competition in Dallas a few months ago, and unfortunately, the 2022 version it was canceled. Okay, so yeah, so we were planning on going down to Texas in October. Hopefully, it'll come back in 2023. But you know, we're definitely going to plan a visit to the distillery when we get back there to Texas. So let's talk just a little bit more about the age here. So you said this is 4 years.
Yes.
What is the oldest straight bourbon that you've made at TX?
Also, I did want to disclose the other bit of information that I'm able to. It's a 3+ char on the barrel. So we are allowed to, we do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for those geeks, those nerds on the call.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, we have people here who geek out about the char and the difference between char and toast and all that stuff. And, you know, believe we could totally get into that. And by the way, Paul, I love the cat there. I just love the cat. That's beautiful. I want to ask you a question about your experience as a whiskey professional. Okay. So you've been in the spirits industry for a long time. Can you tell us how you taste a whiskey?
Yes, with pleasure. Okay, so we have a whiskey in our glass. We bring the delicious whiskey to our noses. Give it a gentle whiff, but actually also we open our mouth when we smell. If you don't do this, it may feel weird, may look weird, but actually it's not weird. It's an opportunity for the whiskey to give you everything that it wants to give. We have any flavors that you're going to pick up, and we're talking flavors. If you smell that, well, right now we'd be smelling florals, maybe maple, maybe a little bit of cinnamon, perhaps, right? All of these flavors, they are all picked up from the olfactory settings. These little hairs on the back of the nose and throat, that picks up all flavor. When you smell something, whether it's food, drink, anytime, sometimes you're like, oh, it smells good enough to eat. You're eating it. The flavors that you're getting there are all the flavors you're ever going to get. When we taste, we only taste the sweet, the sour, the bitter, the umami, the acidity. No flavors are picked up on the tongue, but then you get all that wonderful mouthfeel. So we smell with our mouth open. We get everything that whiskey is wanting to tell us on the nose, and then we have a little sip. We take 2 sips. First sip. Do a little. If you want to do all that like the wine people, that's cool. I do it all the time. I love it. Get it all around the mouth. Coat your mouth, coat your tongue. Get all of the nooks and crannies and everywhere. And then we take the second sip, and this is the one that gives you absolutely everything.
Delicious.
Yeah, it's a good whiskey. This is this is one of my favorite kind of. I don't know. I always love to ask. I don't always like to just talk about what I'm getting. But I always like to find out because everybody gets something different.
Right. Well, in the chat, people have been putting some stuff in the chat. Okay.
What have we got?
You know, and a number of people already said cinnamon. You know, with respect to, I actually said candied apples. You know, is something that I tasted. You know, in the whole thing there.
Candied apples.
Yeah, because it was something fruity, but like sweet and fruity. You know, it is something that I got. But the cinnamon was definitely something that a lot of people got early on, and a little bit of heat on the back, a little bit of heat, not much.
Absolutely, it's that comes and the finish is balanced. It's smooth, but it's warm. That's the Texas hug for you. On the palate, my top tasting notes of this whiskey are fig, allspice, and brown sugar.
Oh,
I also did a little bit of salinity.
Todd just wrote allspice. It's funny. You right before you said allspice, Todd Coe, who has a very good palate, he wrote the word allspice. Very nice, Todd.
I
Excellent.
thought he's on
Way to
form
go.
tonight.
You know?
Yes, sir.
No, that's great. That's wonderful. And then, so before we go on to the blended, okay, one other question I just have for you about tasting. When you taste whiskey, do you ever put water into it or not? Is that something that you ever do with your whiskeys?
Yeah, there's two options. So if we're tasting for pleasure, if I'm with my dad, with my mate, or just having a whiskey because I want to drink a whiskey, I'll drink a whiskey. If it's a high proof whiskey, and instead of just enjoying whiskey, I'm looking to kind of get a little bit technical and think about it, almost like I'm working, right? You want to go technical, you don't have to be working, but if you want to get a little bit down to the technicalities, you want to think about it a little bit. You want to work. You've got a high proof whiskey, and you kind of want to make it a bit more of an activity, something fun, something experiential. Every single bottle of whiskey that I consume that's high proof, or what I consider high proof over 40, I will almost always have a little water dropper and add a few drops, especially to bourbon whiskey, to higher proof Nadura, natural Scotch whiskey. Anything at 40, I'll just knock back. I won't technically put some water in, but I think anything over gives you an opportunity to have an experience, have a little fun with it.
I agree, and many of the people here would agree with you as well. You know, we frequently have water with us when we're doing this. We've had enough of these, and we've gone to enough tastings to know that people do it. But it's always good to hear from you, you know, how you actually do it. So let's move on to the blended. Okay, so yeah. I'm really curious. You know, I'd like to know, you know, what do you mean by blended? Are all the whiskeys here being produced by you, or are you bringing in other people's whiskeys? What does blended mean to TX?
Okay, so the blended whiskey, this was our original offering, if you like. We of course, as I said before, we were making this or putting this out when the whiskey was when the bourbon whiskey was aging. So this, I mean, what are the components of this blended whiskey? We've got yellow Texas corn, rye again from Texas, and malted barley. Now, originally, we were blending and sourcing, of course, because you can't magically have a whiskey straight away. As I said before as well, now we're definitely making everything ourselves. We don't disclose the mash bills of this one, but
Okay, so let me stop you. Okay, so you don't disclose the mash bills, but are all the whiskeys in here being produced by TX?
Yes, sir. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So what you're doing is you're blending different whiskeys that you produce, but you're not telling us exactly what the whiskeys are.
Yeah. But we do say, no, it's Texas corn whiskey, it's rye, and it's malted barley this time.
Okay. So there's malted barley, there's some corn whiskey. Is there anything else?
There's 3 grains: yellow Texas corn, rye, and malted barley.
Ah, there's a rye in there too. Okay. So I got to tell you something. As soon as I tasted it, okay, I smelled it and tasted it. It's really funny. We're going to make sure you get the a copy of the chat later, because Eric can email you a copy of the chat. My immediate response was cream soda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Soda, yeah.
You know, Dr. Brown's cream soda, which is just, you know, it's like, and immediately, you know, somebody said spot on. Somebody said yes, and then other people say spice and cream. So you got to. This is unique. Where's the creaminess coming from?
Yeah, this is, I mean, ultimately, we've got three situations here. First one, we've got the grains in the mash bill. We went to get this particular flavor profile. We tried, or we didn't, Rob Arnold did, who's an absolute legend as well. If you ever have a chance to meet him, just a nice fella, super intelligent, and just a cool guy who's super smart and made sure every single experiment was made before we ended up here. He was worked tirelessly at the TCU labs in here in Texas to find the perfect blend of this grain and
But again, I want to go back to the creaminess, okay?
Right.
Because this is sort of a unique flavor and texture. And so I really want to know what, where do you think this creaminess is coming from?
Well, it can only come from 3 places. So we've got the ingredients that go in there: the grains, the water, the yeast. The second is the distillation method and the distillation technique. We have a huge hybrid still from Vendôme at the distillery. It's copper. We use it to make all our whiskey now. And then the aging, of course, where we don't talk about where the barrels come from, but we say it's 4 years, and that is the three options of any whiskey really that you get to create your flavor profile, and it's down to those 3.
And so the youngest whiskey in here is how old in the blended?
We say the youngest is 4 years.
Okay, got it. Now,
yeah, pretty yeah.
And this is, if I remember correctly, this is what, under $40, right? And at Benny's, I think it's like under $40, right?
Yeah, 33 here in Texas.
Okay, that's crazy. All right, we'll have
incredible
to double check.
Value.
Yeah. I'm sure somebody will look it up. While we're talking here about how much this costs at Benny's, but this is a ridiculous value.
No, there's not. It's really, really all the thing about all of our products at Pernod Ricard. Everything is a great value. Everything is like phenomenally well made. I can hand on heart say that there's not a bad whiskey in the portfolio. There's no such thing as a bad whiskey in our portfolio, but also all of our spirits. It all follows the same line. Yes, we're the second largest spirit company in the world, but there's definitely that kind of mentality of family values, doing the right thing, being sustainable, looking after Mother Nature, and putting out quality products, and everything's consistent. And you'll always be able to find them, and you'll never get knocked on the price.
Yeah, no, this is wonderful. This is a crazy value, and this is again part of why Eric and I like doing these things, because most of the people here have not had TX, okay, and we've just introduced them to a great whiskey for $35 that everybody seems to really like a lot. That's pretty, and they like the bourbon too for $45, which is also a very good price. So now we're gonna take it up a notch. Okay, now we're moving up to a cask strength.
Yeah.
Cognac cask. Okay. Again, thank you very much, Ralph and Lynn, for bringing this to us from Texas. We thank you very, very much for that. By the way, everybody, you'll love knowing that Lynn's one request for the whole thing was that if we had any extra after we poured the samples, she wanted to get the extra. So, and I think that is
and
a very...
she did, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Eric.
Oh, no, thank you. So I have a few questions, and again, I want everybody to remember and pay attention to the fact and respect that this is 101.6 proof, so 50.8%, and it's aged in a cognac cask. So the mash bill in here is the same as the straight bourbon mash bill, correct? Because
yes, sir.
Okay, great.
This is our bourbon.
Great, same mash bill. Tell us about the cognac cask. Okay, now how does terroir work into this stuff? Do they make cognac in Texas?
Right. So good question. The cognac is not from Texas.
Okay.
You've exposed the holes in our theory here. Definitely not a 100% Texas product, but no problem. It is until we age it in these beautiful cognac casks that come in from cognac. Of course, cognac has an appellation de contrôlé, which means cognac is made in that area. So cognac, if it's not cognac, it's brandy made anywhere. This is cognac. So I was with Ale on the weekend. So actually, there's another person in the TX family that would be interesting to talk about. Her name is Ale, and she is our flavor scientist. So she has a master's in flavor science, and she works at the distillery. She has a hand in everything. She's our blender. So okay. She's a really cool girl, like one of the women to watch in whiskey. She's just a young woman doing cool things.
And does she work? Now, does she work at TX or does she work for Pernod Ricard? How did like?
Oh, so everybody at TX now works for Pernod Ricard.
Okay, and is she at TX itself though? She works
Yeah,
at the
she's in
distillery.
there.
Okay, got
Day
it.
in, day out.
Right.
She was.
So then she selects the cognac casks.
She's
Okay.
our blender, right? She's our like master blender, flavor scientist.
Okay.
She does a lot there. Worked closely with Rob Arnold as well at the beginning, and she's basically our she's like one like the head honcho.
So we're getting a few questions. I just want to make sure I get to them before we get off here. So first question that came up is, how long is it in the cognac cask?
2 years. So this one here, though it's though it's the same whiskey, it's a 2-year-old whiskey. When the whiskey is 2 years old, we pop it in the cognac cask for 2 years.
For a whole 2 years. Got it.
Yes,
wow.
sir.
And
it's two and two.
Yeah, because you really get a lot from it. I mean, it's definitely, you definitely get the wine from this. And somebody asked, can you tell us which cognac is being used here, or you're not allowed to tell us that?
So actually, yeah, nobody really, unless nobody really mentions the cognac casks kind of ever. However, I can say we also own one of the
Okay, so you see what he's trying to tell us here. What Simon's trying to tell us here is that if we were to go and take a look on the Pernod Ricard website, and if we were to take a look at the different spirits in the portfolio, we could probably figure out which cognac is being used. That's what he's trying to hint to us here.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, good. That's fine. We've seen that before with other companies. Perfectly fine. No problem at all. Okay, so this is amazing. And I've got to tell you, my one regret here is that we can't buy this in Illinois. So let's talk about availability. Okay, so
yes, sir.
Why can't we buy stuff like this in Illinois? You know, what is it about the fact that the only things that are really available outside of Texas are those first two expressions? You know, your straight bourbon and your blended.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the thing. TX is still quite a new whiskey. We have, since we've purchased it a couple of years ago, we're making serious moves in terms of everything: distribution, the innovation that we're doing now. Obviously, there's the strength of a global company behind it. And we're making it happen and making it move. TX has, though it's an incredible, fan base here in Texas, it's not been exposed greatly to the rest of America yet. But it's on the move. It's happening.
So that it will have. So that's part of the plan, is to bring other expressions to other parts of the country.
Absolutely, bringing everything to other parts of the country. This the distillery is actually the largest distillery this side of the Mississippi River, I believe is the fact. So I mean, all I'm trying to allude to is it's a huge distillery. We're making a boat ton of whiskey and doing a lot with innovation. We've got there's 3 finished expressions that are currently available in Texas. Sadly, they're not available outside yet, but they are on the way.
Okay, so it's the cognac. What are the other 2? The cognac, and then what are the other 2?
Yeah, so we have a Pedro Jimenez PX expression and a port expression. I must say, but it's incredible that you have the cognac tonight. That we have the cognac because first of all, it's brand new. Second of all, the cool thing is this is actually not only my favorite expression, of finished expression that we're doing, but I think this is like, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, of the cognac finished whiskeys that I've tried, I think even this beats all of ours. This is a great expression. It's well integrated. It's just a harmonious blend.
Right. No, it's delicious. I mean, you really do get, you're getting the wine character, but you're getting the bourbon character. You're getting both.
All that fruit, it comes through.
Yeah. By the way, I don't remember how much this one cost. If you remember,
it's a little bit more pricey.
Well,
actually.
it should be.
Yeah. It's here in Texas, I believe we're hovering around the 40 or high 40s, low to mid 50s, depending on where you go.
That's a steal. No, I'm sorry. That for a quality whiskey like this, no, this is damn good. This is one heck of a steal. Now I've got a bunch of other questions that I can ask you, but what I want to do, since we're getting a lot of good comments here, is that I do want to open it up for questions. But before that, Eric, do you have any particular questions for Simon?
One question on actually going back to the beginning on the wild yeast. So you said you're using wild yeast, and I'm assuming it's the same yeast for all the products that you're making.
Yes.
Is that still continuation of the same wild yeast strain? Or have you taken found the wild yeast flavor that you make, and then now you're manufacturing that to keep a consistent flavor profile?
Yeah, a great question. Excuse me, that's I'll clear that one up. Yes, indeed. This was a wild yeast strain in the beginning, and we isolated it and have multiple copies of it, and we'll always use the same one.
Gotcha. Okay.
This is the same yeast. Absolutely.
Gotcha. So you're not going to have
wild yeast strain. So no longer wild.
Right.
Good point. Originally wild.
It's a tamed yeast.
Absolutely, exactly. Yeah. Spot on. Yeah, and to be honest with you, when you were saying with the TX blended, this funky flavor that we get is, the question is, what gives it its flavor? It's always the 3 ingredients, the distillation method, and the aging. The wild yeast contributes, and that's why TX is so special. First of all, having the balls to go down the route of somewhere that hasn't really been done, but throwing in a wild yeast that's derived from a pecan nut. Rob tried every kind of yeast under the sun. He wanted a Texas yeast, and he was looking at Texas flowers, and he was looking at Texas, all kinds of flora, fauna, anything that he could get a yeast from. And it just so happened that this pecan nut gave some incredible flavor, and that's where we decided to stop. And then it just so happens to be the nut of Texas.
That's cool. Great, thank you.
Yeah, with pleasure.
Excellent, wonderful. Okay, so it looks like we have our first question is from our friend Ariel Eisenberg. Ariel, if you could please unmute.
Simon, thanks so much for having us this evening and for the sample.
With pleasure.
My normal first question would be about cooperage, but I'll refrain from that. So you had talked about the blended whiskey almost being a stopgap while the first batch of straight bourbon was maturing. So given that, is the blended whiskey still a front runner for the Pernod Ricard label, and what kind of consistency are you looking for from that blend? Absolutely.
The TX blended is the foundation of our whiskey at the distillery and at the original. It's also so different, as you guys have seen from anything else. And the world monotony in bourbon was something that drove a lot of these whiskey brands to create something different and innovation. Though I'm not taking anything away from bourbon and whiskey, it's a phenomenal, delicious product. But it has been a sea of monotony for very similar whiskey for a very long time, and now we're hitting that new age of innovation and people doing cool things, funky things with whiskey. This is an example of that kind of new era. And it's here to stay.
Okay, great, wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, great. Paul Barrett, please unmute yourself.
All right, I think I got it. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We're good.
Fantastic. So I will actually try an innocuous, speaking of yeast, an innocuous a cooperage question first. Have you been working with the smaller 30-gallon barrels at all, or has everything gone straight to 53 gallons? I'm sure even with the cognac, they're probably even larger than that somewhere for the cognac
They
finishing,
are.
but
Precisely. You certainly know your wood.
I love wood.
Yeah, me too. It's amazing. I've actually, funny enough, I went to like about a year and a half ago during COVID. I went to a they're not a cooperage, but they're here in Austin. Delta Millwork, just a bunch of cool guys. Love whiskey. They got beers. They know more about wood and American wood than anyone I've ever met. We did an activation there. We charred our own barrels, our like mini petite barrels. It was so much fun. But man, when I was chatting to him, he was talking to me about kind of like the history of like wood in America, and he can look at any piece of wood and he's like, he'll tell you not only how what tree it came from, he'll also be able to tell you the age of that tree when it got knocked down. Man, he blew my mind. One of the coolest guys I've ever met. And yeah, I mean, what a fascinating topic, not only for whiskey, but wood is so important in everything, in the house, just everything. So yeah, we've in terms of wood in the barrels, yes, indeed, the cognac barrels are much larger. We use like a classic size of barrels, 225 liters, of course. There are a bunch of experiments going on. So because innovation is so important to us, yeah, there's lots going on. I mean, I'm not, we don't really like talk about the wood that we use, but it's almost, you'd be very surprised to kind of call out any distillery at the moment who's, everyone's on innovation. I mean, that is kind of where whiskey's going. And that's kind of what everyone wants. Everyone wants innovation. They want cask strength. They want straight from the barrel, non-chill filtered. That's kind of like what's hot at the moment. And I don't think there's a single distillery that isn't using an abundance of different wood types at the moment.
And on the topic of yeast, and I'm known for asking two questions in one, so I apologize in advance. But with the special pecan yeast, what do you have to pay attention to that is different perhaps than like a standard brewer's yeast or champagne yeast, something really, really hungry that can get that up there quickly? Do you have different like distillate or different fermentation temperatures or times, or what's special about using that yeast as from a production side?
Oh, absolutely. Yeast is actually so yeast as an ingredient in a whiskey is so important to the end flavor. Now, the yeast that you use has an effect, or a significant effect, from the very first step, which is the fermentation. When you create your distiller's beer at the beginning, which is the beer that's created prior to distillation, when it becomes a whiskey, when the yeast has a specific flavor profile, and the fermentation is done correctly or very well. And when I say well, I mean clean, in a clean environment and made flawlessly. You get an incredible flavor, flavor compound set in that original distiller's beer, and that carries through to the end after the barrel. Now, when you taste like, for example, when you taste bananas, when you smell Scotch whiskey, the banana at the end in the fruity floral Highland whiskey that comes out in the whiskey, the banana is a product of the clean wort at the beginning. That distiller's beer has an abundance of banana, and that comes through all the way to the end. Now, the yeast is so important for the flavor, and when you use those wild yeast, though it's not safe because it's an unpredictable flavor, it can either go in one way and be negative, or another way and be positive. In this whiskey here, you're getting these mad savory kind of notes and flavors in the TX bourbon. In the blended, it's contributing to that. The cream soda. I also get mad pear. I mean, have a smell again at the blended. I'm getting pears, like sugar coated pears, and obviously that's sweet vanilla. There's an abundance of, and you do get that nuttiness. You do get like a bit of that almost kind of a greener pecan. I don't know. That's just me, but you've got the yeast is so important, and using your yeast and deciding on yeast goes all the way right through to the end. In terms of, I want to address your question of are the fermentation times different and stuff. I honestly don't know, but I do know a guy who does, and I will find out for you. I don't want to say anything I don't know, but yeah, I'll find out.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, and we can put you in touch with each other. You know, you can give us email addresses, stuff like that. Wonderful.
With pleasure.
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks,
or you can take a trip down to TX. Let us know, and I'll get you a VIP tour, and you can.
By the way, that goes to anybody here. Anybody here, if you're planning a trip down there, let me know. Let Eric and me know. We'll put you in touch with Simon, and then they'll hook you up. Great.
If you anybody anytime got different whiskey questions at Dope Drams on Instagram, you can hit me up anytime. If you've got a whiskey question, you're going to TX, whatever. I'll always reply relatively quickly, and anything you need to know, I'll be happy to furnish you with an answer.
Wonderful. William Myers, please unmute.
Okay, so two questions. So I'm looking here. It looks like my local Total Wine has that the blended in a half-gallon size, which I love. You'd mentioned that it was a previously sourced.
Yeah.
So is there a way to tell, like if I go buy a half gallon of this stuff and I don't get that cream soda note because it's the sourced variety and not what we just had, I'm not gonna be too happy. So is there a way to tell that in advance?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually the laws of whiskey are of course always evolving and changing. But when we started, we actually it was a legal requirement to put on the bottle where your whiskey is made. I can safely tell you, you will not pick up a bottle of that older whiskey. Do you know what? If you do, I'd be highly surprised. So maybe you will. And if you do, it'd be really cool, and send me a sample.
Okay. And then the other thing I was going to ask you was, like, is there a way, like, obviously, if people are down there, they can look closely at the cognac barrels, but which type of cognac? Because I know you guys do Martell, and there's a vast difference between the XO and the Cordon Bleu.
Yeah. Well, we're not. You'll find also with all kind of American whiskeys. Nobody will ever really tell you which cognac barrels they use.
You'd be surprised.
If you, really?
Yes.
Well, yes, we share the love.
Attorney-client privilege, so I won't tell anyone.
Very nice. Very nice.
We of course we own like the oldest cognac house in the world. I mean, it would obviously be a safe assumption to know that it would be relatively easy to get some barrels from there, as opposed to buying them off someone else. I
was just trying to figure out which, because, like, you know, Cordon Bleu is very fruity versus the XO, which is very floral. So
yeah, remember, we're being recorded here, so
okay.
Very good, wonderful.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thanks, William. All right, Todd with the amazing palette tonight. You've really been rocking it tonight, Todd. What's on your mind?
Trying. So Simon, you talked a lot in the beginning about terroir and provenance, which is a fascinating concept to me in the whiskey world. I'm curious how far that gets carried. I want to talk about corn and I want to talk about water. I know the corn you mentioned is sourced within 50 miles of the distillery. Is that just regular old yellow dent just from Texas, or are you changing it up to some different cultivars?
Oh no, yes sir, yellow dent. That's you got it. It's yellow dent Texas corn from Sawyer Farms in Hillsborough.
All right, and local water too for the fermentation and the proofing down, or are you using like osmosis or something?
No, 100% local. 100% local water. The water's all comes from
cool.
Alice. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful, great, and now we have our special courier, Lynn Schatz, who brought us the cognac expression. Lynn, take it away, please.
I actually have two comments. One, I was intrigued by a vague grassiness, which I like, but I've never found in a bourbon before on the first one. And by the way, which I did not find at all in the third one. And it's starting to tell me that what I always associated with rye is actually a function of where you do your distillate cut. I'm now beginning to believe grassiness really comes from going slightly deeper into the tails. Any feedback on that, Simon? And I have another question too.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the cut of the distillation, what you're looking to achieve is cutting as close as you can, of course, for clarity in terms of flavor. But as you go, I mean, either side of the distillation, you're picking up cogners and essentially flavors that you could see as impurities, or you could see them as flavors. Those high esters on the front end, very naughty and kind of poison, and on the back end of the tails.
Yeah, you don't want to cut too high into the heads. That's kind of nasty.
Right, but yeah, exactly. But where you do your cut, you're kind of you're looking for those impurities, those flavor compounds. You're kind of passing up. The closer you go inside, you're passing up potential flavor notes, and the flavor notes are picked up the kind of deeper you go. Either way, looking at cognac, for example, that is a very rich and abundant in its kind of coarseness that adds to all that flavor. So yeah, the deeper you go, if we're going to generalize, more flavors you're picking up, the flavor compounds that contribute to a wonderful flavored whiskey. Yeah, I mean, I can't talk about where the cut is, but yeah, we're in the meat world, where they say the fat equals flavor. In the distillation world, the cut equals flavor, isn't it?
Interesting. The other thing was, and as I say, I'm curious as to whether it's the same cuts when we get to the cognac finish, or the cognac barrel aging has pulled out some of that grassiness. The other thing, though, when we were trying to decide which bottles to bring back, because there was a limit as to what I could put in my suitcase. So Total Wine, I've managed to hit somebody there who was really great on bourbon. And he made a comment about TX whiskey, which when I tasted the second two, I did not get at all. I didn't understand his comment. He said, they're doing something funny. I get just way too much vanilla. I said, okay, so that's how I picked the cognac cask, because I figured chances are there will be less of that in the cognac finish. So when we first poured these, didn't get the vanilla. Now they've been sitting out at room temp for a while and getting air. Bam, the second two, lots and lots of vanilla. What's going on there?
Yeah, okay, so your whiskey will change from the moment you open the bottle to when it's poured in the glass, and then while it's in the glass, 10-20 minutes, it will evolve. And actually, even after, with the TX bourbon, when you drink the whiskey and you have an empty glass, if you approach it the next day, you get some incredible flavor in there, in the empty whiskey glass. the flavor evolves. It evolves like nobody's business, and it's ever changing.
But why is the vanilla such a strong note? As I say, when I first tasted those two, I couldn't understand what the Total Wine guy was saying about it.
It's yeah.
Is there, and I don't get the intensity of vanilla with other whiskeys, American whiskeys, that, you know, sit out as I'm drinking them, not to this extent, not where I didn't really sense it too much when I first poured it, but a few minutes, well, 15, 20 minutes later, bam, it's very in your face. What's going on with TX that's happening?
So vanillins, and you have a couple of things that are specific to the wood, and in the wood you have vanillins and you have tannins, and these flavor compounds, as the whiskey ages, draws them flavors from the wood as the whiskey's aging. And when you taste wood in all kind of American whiskey, when you taste vanilla, you're getting it from the wood there primarily. Of course, these flavor compounds that you get in the glass will be coming from again the three things: the ingredients, the distillation, and the aging. The vanilla is right there from the wood. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's great. I love the geeky questions, Lynn. Those are
Yeah,
awesome
it's
geeky
amazing.
questions. Yeah, it's great. So it looks like we have looks like we actually still have another question from Paul Barrett. Paul, you have another question for us.
Yeah, it looks like Eric's permanent mute didn't work well, so I'm very thankful for that today. But I did want to spend a quick minute, if we have time, talking about experiments and finishes, because this is a group that loves that, right?
Yeah.
And you were talking about various experiments that you have. So I want to ask my normal question, first of all. Any playing around with Curacao, because that's super fun with rye, at least, and you've got good spice on your bourbon, so I'm wondering if there's any of that. Secondly, I do notice that Lillet, I believe, is part of the portfolio. Any messing around with taking some, you know, barrels that have held Lillet at some point in time, even if it's seasoning them, and seeing what not just, you know, a wine type thing does, but, you know, a botanical Amaro type vermouth thing does to
Mate.
The fun.
Yeah.
Because now we're talking.
First of all, you should be working on some kind of brand team. Probably the Texas. You'll fit right in with your gorgeous facial hair. I'll tell you that.
Thank you. I do have the beard.
What an idea, mate. Yeah, you're ready for Texas, brother. Yeah. Do you like barbecue?
Not as much as the rest of these guys.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. All right, fair play. Oi, but you know what? Maybe coming to Texas will change your mind and you'll love it.
I love meat.
Yeah,
I dislike sweet.
Oi, but you need to come to Texas, and you need to come to Austin. Oi, if you come to Austin, hit me up on the IG there. I'll take you to some serious barbecue, and we're gonna send it with a bottle of
I'm there.
Yeah, wicked.
I'll help you keep Texas weird. I'll help you keep Texas weird.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so Lillet, absolutely bloody great idea. It's a bit of genius. There's nothing with Lillet that's currently been done. Something that they were talking about last time I saw Ale. We're doing something cool with coffee, actually. That's kind of a little bit rare for bourbon. So that's something cool that's kind of in the pipeline. Coffee being obviously Jameson. We just had a innovation, the Jameson cold brew. So we are going to do something in TX with coffee, and I think that's going to be our next kind of experimental fun thing. On the tip of rye, I have something I picked up at the distillery last time I was there. If you can see this, this is the experimental series. This was real small production. It's 100% rye whiskey. It's 126 proof, very high, aged 4 years, 5 months, 100% rye, barrel proof, uncut, unfiltered. This was kind of just a little one-off. So that's something that's mad interesting that we're doing. In fact, I haven't tried it in a while. It tasted, last time I tried it, it tasted like bubble gum.
Yep. That's
Mad interesting. Yeah. I'm gonna retry it now, but I mean, it is hot. It's up there, and it's 100% rye. You don't see that. I mean, it's almost crazy to not add a little bit of malted barley to kind of soften it up and balance it generally with your Americans. Yeah, it's still got bubble gum. It's got bubble gum and kind of smells like salt. It's salty, sweet, and bubble gum. Man, it's so weird, so good, but like in a cool way. It's really, really cool. Yeah, you got to get down to the distillery, I think.
we're gonna have to do another tasting with the rye because that sounds fantastic.
Okay, I gotta tell you something. We can only do since we had issues sourcing from TX. So anybody here who goes to and not a point of criticism, I'm just pointing out anybody here who happens to go down there, let us know. We'll talk about getting more types of bottles from them, and then we can arrange another tasting, of course, with Simon. So we're at 8 o'clock here. Okay, we are at 8 o'clock, and Simon, I got to tell you something. This has been a blast. This has been a lot of fun because we really have introduced a new brand to people. Okay, and what I'd like everybody to do here is, first everybody unmute, and if you are so inclined, even if you have anything left, pour some more whiskey into one of your glasses. I am going back to the cognac finish because I have finished the other two. As far as I'm concerned, leaving the best for last. Everybody, please join me in saying cheers and thank you very much to our special guest, Simon Nicolian.
Oh, man.
Cheers, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our special guest, Simon Nicolian.
Thank you.
Simon, if you do have any final words for us before we turn off the recording here.
Oh, just thank you so much. Like, this was such a pleasure, and also one of the most enjoyable tastings I've ever done. Thank you. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that.